Dun 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 dun. We skipped the second movie and went straight to the third. Welcome back, S'mores, to Beyond the Campfire. We got another Indiana Jones episode this week. We are moving past the festivities of Christmas into the stuff of the new year. So we got a non-Christmas episode. It's still related to Jesus, but it's not Christmas. Today we are traveling around the world to look for another holy artifact that has been lost to time. Did it exist? Could it have existed? If it does, where is it now? The Holy Grail.
That's right. Yeah, we'll be talking about the Holy Grail today. So you'll have to excuse me a little bit today, S'mores. I'm recovering from being kind of dead the last 3 days. Feeling much better today, by the grace of God. But yeah, still not 100% there. But good enough to be here with you guys this week. So happy to be up and kicking. I hope you guys had a great Christmas week, holidays, however many days you spent it. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a entertaining episode for you guys today. So
Yeah. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Beyond Campfire. And yeah, by the way, guys, go find us on Patreon. You can find it in our link tree. Yeah, we've got our Patreon launched. We've got our first episode up there so far. And yeah, you can find out what truly actually happened to Stephen in that episode.
all right. So today we are talking about the Holy Grail. Most of you guys probably know about the Holy Grail from the Indiana Jones movies. Although also if you're a Monty Python fan,
Yep.
you'll find it in there as well. So this is an object that has been seen in a number of different forms of media, movies, TV shows, comic books, things that you can um, find and watch pretty much all the time. And it's one of those things where it's become such a big part of culture where it's kind of become its own term. You might not even be looking for the Holy Grail itself. You might be trying to find something else, and and people will just call that like, "Oh, that's my Holy Grail." Like,
yeah, like we found the Holy Grail. We found the Mother Lode. Yeah.
right. But yeah, the Holy Grail, at least the original conception of it, was the cup that was used by the Lord Jesus Christ at the Last Supper with his disciples. That's where he breaks the bread and he says, "This is my body, which was broken for you." And then he gets the cup with the wine in it and he says, "This is my blood, which was spilled for you. Drink this in remembrance of me." And that cup is never mentioned again in scripture after that. So, did the disciples keep it? Did they know that that was going to be a significant cup later on? We don't really know. I mean, um, I did look up. Apparently, the Catholic Church has some interesting views on the Holy Grail itself. So I'll dive a little bit into the history of what Dave said. But yeah, most historians believe that cup has been lost to time, and hence why there is, just like with the Ark of the Covenant, there's been a big search for it for thousands of years now. That's why there's been movies about Indiana Jones going to look for it and knights in medieval times going to look for it because hey, who wouldn't want a cup that that Jesus held and drank out of? So
yeah. That's like there's another show too that they slightly mentioned the Holy Grail, and it was that show I mentioned it during the Ark of the Covenant, I believe it was, and it's called oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it was on Netflix. It was supposed to get season 3, but it got canceled over season 2, and it was really good, and it talked about like the downfall of the Templars, and part of it I think was going to be like I think if they went to the third season, they were going to kind of have another crusade because um, during their retreat from Jerusalem, they actually lost the Ark or the Holy Grail in the process, and that's what they kind of believe led to their downfall. Was they lost grace with God because they lost the cup.
Yeah, and that would kind of tie in with what we talked about earlier with the Ark of the Covenant, where if you touch the Ark the wrong way, like you would literally die. So,
Yeah.
you want to treat sacred objects with the sacred reverence that is due, and if you lose it, pretty good sign you weren't really taking care of it properly, and hence you probably deserve whatever divine judgment may be falling your way, whether it's fire from heaven or a plague or the earth opening up and swallowing you. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the Bible that happens. Maybe one day I'll make a
Yeah.
Beyond the Bible podcast and talk about some of those things.
I think that should be done. The wife said that if you do that, because if you guys remember the Ark of the Covenant episode, she thinks that Stephen should tell Bible stories, and then I reinterpret them.
There you go. So, be on the lookout. We might have Beyond the Bible maybe at some point.
Yeah, it better be put out a lot more than Beyond the Culture. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know that one is.
Intense.
I was gonna film a Beyond the Culture earlier this week, and then I got sick. So that got a lot of things have been put on hold. Actually, there's anyway. But yeah, so Holy Grail in a nutshell, a legendary object from Christian tradition that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper. Um, According to tradition and legend, we don't know if this is true or not, uh, but some people have associated it with Joseph of Arimathea. I hope I'm saying that right. He's the
Mhm.
guy that went and got Jesus's body and buried him in his own tomb. So apparently, that guy, that Joseph, somehow got a hold of the Holy Grail, and he used it to collect Jesus's blood at the crucifixion.
Hmm.
So that's kind of just one legend concerning the Holy Grail. Now whether he drank it or not, I I don't know. Um,
Well, there's another which I find that kind of interesting because I think there's a Catholic saint that I read about because I don't really read about Catholic saints. But he was kind of cool because I think you might I can't remember what his name was, but he was the guy who pierced Jesus's side that he actually
oh,
became a Catholic saint.
yeah, Saint Longius.
Yes, because he pierced Jesus' side and it cured his blindness. So that was kind of I think that's what happened. But yeah,
Yeah, that's
I think it kind of makes me wonder like, okay, well what are you what are you gonna do with the blood now, you know?
yeah, I know, right? So, um, I mean, yeah, that's sacred blood. That's that's the blood of God right there.
Oh yeah.
Um, but this is what a Catholic Answers has to say because the Catholic Church, they're kind of more interested in keeping relics than Protestants are.
Yeah. The
Yeah, of
Vatican.
course, you know, depending on which Catholic you ask, I've met Catholics that fully believe that the Catholic Church has kept and preserved all the artifacts they say it is. So when they say, "Hey, this is the actual crown of thorns that Jesus wore," there's Catholics that are like, "Yeah, that's the actual crown of thorns that Jesus wore."
It's
I've
really
met up.
crazy.
Like, go ahead.
Like the things the Catholic Church has. Like we have to eventually do an episode. We might have to do like several episodes over the Vatican, just the things that they have. They don't just have, the crown of thorns. They don't just have the nails. They think they have the head of Mary Magdalene.
Right.
They have, and it's not just like holy relics they have. They have like, have you ever heard of the chronosphere? I think it's called the chronosphere.
No, I haven't heard of that. What's that?
People believe that the Vatican has a time machine.
Oh, you had mentioned that to me at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently they went back in time and saw the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and like he looked at them, and they were like, "Yeah, we got to lock this thing away."
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
The Vatican.
Uh, I think if time travel were possible, I don't think our Lord would actually want us to be doing
No,
that. So
it because people have talked about it. Like when you travel back in time to see the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and like you're just standing there looking at the cross, and he looks down at you and just speaks in clear English. You're not supposed to be here.
all right. I
It's
think
like,
I've
whoa.
like that. So but anyway, I don't want to get too off topic.
Yeah, no, 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 no.
Let's see. But yeah, long story short, Catholics have a long in history and tradition of keeping relics. I won't get into whether I believe those relics are real or not. I think probably some,
Hoarders.
but I hopefully I'm not offending too many of our Catholic listeners, but I think most of them are probably fake. You
Dude,
know?
all I can think about now is like the Pope, and they're sitting there and they're like, "Welcome back to American Hoarders. We're here with the Pope," and he's like waddling through all this, like all these artifacts, and he's like got a bunch of trash, and it's like, "This, I swear to you, all right, Jesus touched this stick. We have to keep it. It's a sacred item."
They're gonna get us canceled by the Catholics.
We know some Catholics, and they're not going
We
to be
do.
happy with that one.
They have an army, man. They will send their army after us in the comments. But
Nah, the Knights Templar's already been disbanded. They ain't gonna do nothing.
hey, Catholics, if it makes you feel better, I'm about to read off of Catholic Answers. So
Oh,
there you go. You gotta love us a little bit. But here's Catholic Answers take on the Holy Grail. So it's a little long, but I'll try to shorten it a little bit.
mm-hmm.
But uh, okay, all right. A lot of this is stuff I've already said. So blah 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 blah. Okay, the word Grail probably comes from the Latin book Graydale, which comes from the Latin word gradalis or gradale, meaning a dish, wide and somewhat deep, in which costly viands are wont. Okay, this is Old English. That's because I'm quoting something else. Okay, but it seems to come from a few Latin and French words.
Ho,
Basic,
ho, ho.
yeah, basically meaning cup or dish. Legends of the Holy Grail did not really develop until the later Middle Ages, where several epic poems about the search for the Holy Grail were written. When we come to
Mm.
examine the literary tradition concerning the Grail, we notice at the outset the Grail legend is closely connected with that of Percival as well as that of King Arthur. Yet, with all these
Mm.
legends were originally independent of each other. The Percival story may have a mythical origin, or it may have been regarded as the tale of a simpleton. In all the versions that we have it is part of the Arthurian legend, and in almost all, it is furthermore connected with the Grail. So the reconstruction of the original Grail legend can be accomplished only by an analytical comparison of all. Anyway, they get very nerdy, as Catholic Answers usually tends to do.
Nerd.
I know, but long story short, it seems it actually seems to me like Catholic Answers thinks that the Grail has been lost to time as well,
Yeah.
based off this article. But they were saying that it was the inspiration of a lot of these epic poems that we see in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Pretty
The Middle Ages, they kind of got bored and just like came up with one. I feel like that's what the Middle Ages did. It was a dark time, and they needed to keep themselves entertained.
yeah, people were dying of a black plague, So
Yeah.
if there are any King Arthur fans watching this, they're going to be pulling their hair out right now because I'm not a King Arthur fan. I don't think I've actually read a single. I don't think I've read a single King Arthur story.
I
I don't.
haven't,
I don't
but I know the gist of like what King Arthur is. And actually, I watched a really cool show called Stargate. I'm gonna rewatch it with my son when he comes
there you
and
go.
show him the really cool thing. Have you seen Stargate all the way through?
No, I haven't seen Stargate.
I'm surprised. It's like the best. Like you know what? I'm fixing to be a heathen. People are gonna hate me for what I'm fixing to say.
Oh man,
It's better than Star Trek.
wow.
Do
Thank.
you know what the premise of Stargate is?
No, I actually don't. I'm looking it up.
So basically, there was these people called the Ancients who built these portals. Almost, they were these gigantic metal discs, and like let's say there was one here on Earth and one on another planet a million light years away. You could dial from here on Earth, step through it, and be instantly transported to the other planet.
Interesting.
So it's about where the U.S. government or the Air Force kind of took control of this, and they have created the Stargate program to where they have these different teams that go out. And King Arthur was mentioned later on because Merlin was actually an ancient, and that was kind of like the whole thing there. Like Merlin was an ancient who built the Stargate system, and all this. Yeah, it's an interesting show, but yeah, King Arthur is mentioned in there a little bit towards the end of the show, like Camelot and all that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking it up. Yeah, okay. I vaguely remember seeing advertisements for this.
Yeah, I only know about it because my dad was a huge fan of it, and my dad actually had the DVDs on box set, and so I watched them. And then like I only saw Stargate, and then recently there's actually three shows. There was Stargate, and then after Stargate there was two movies and another show called Atlantis, which actually had Jason Momoa in it. Fun fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was one of his starting shows. And then there's a second show I never got into, which is called Stargate Universe. It kind of was kind of boring to me. Um,
Gotcha.
but yeah.
Okay,
Anyways,
Stargate Atlantis as well.
yeah, that was that. Listen, out of all the shows, Stargate Atlantis was the best to me. Like Stargate was good in the early seasons, but later on it kind of got a little eh. But Stargate Atlantis was the best to me. I wish they were going to create another season, but it got canceled, and I'm sad. I wish there could have been another season.
So that show you're saying is connected to the King Arthur stuff.
Towards the end, because what they do is a lot of what Stargate was they took inspiration from like different. So the main thing is there's these creatures called, because the first big bad of the show is called the Goa'uld, and they were these parasitic like organisms that would embed themselves into humans and then take control of their bodies.
Very
And
big.
yeah, and so if they didn't have us, they couldn't really do anything, but they would take over people, and it kind of gave them the ability to kind of, and they took control of the stargates, and they're actually the reason why the pyramids were built because there were spaceship landing stations. But they took over basically all the Goa'uld when they enslaved humanity. They took on the role of like the Egyptian gods. So like, there's a Stargate movie that came up before the show, which actually had Kurt Russell in it, and they killed Ra as a Goa'uld. So you got like Ra, you got Apophis, you got like, and so they take inspiration from actual true legends in our culture and put into the show. So King Arthur appeared later on in the show, and even Camelot. So I don't think the Holy Grail might have made an appearance.
Gotcha. Yeah. So okay, cool. Um, yeah. Let me look at my notes.
Yeah, sorry to take us off topic there, but yeah,
No. Yeah. You're good. I mean, there's actually a lot on the Holy Grail, but in the few days I was preparing for this, I was just like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to like get into all these poems and things of King Arthur, and
our first 3 hour episode, everybody.
I know, right? Uh,
Tis was a warm, beautiful morning. I frolicked through the meadows.
I'll uh, I'll get a little bit into some of the common themes of the poems because I think this is where really our modern conception of the Holy Grail comes from.
Mhm.
Because here's one reason why people wanted to get the Holy Grail, at least in the legends, right? Because for me, the fact that Jesus Christ drank out of it would be enough for me. But for other people, maybe that's not quite enough. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't really care about Lord Jesus for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And so the Holy Grail, it was said that depending on the version of the story, some people would say that if you got in possession of the Holy Grail, you would have eternal youth, or you could reverse some of the aging effects that you
Yeah.
have. If you were like 80 and then you drank out of the Holy Grail, you'd be like 20 again out of nowhere.
Hmm.
So yeah, obviously in these stories, how many dying kings want to continue to reign forever, right? And would love
Yeah.
to get this Holy Grail. So what do? You send out a band of knights, your Knights of the Round Table. You go and you send them out, and they go find this Holy Grail. They bring it back to you, and then boom, you get to be king not just for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You get to be king maybe forever. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And if you grab the wrong cup, you die.
right, exactly. So I'm going to continue reading because Catholic Answers actually has a surprisingly good amount of information on this. Uh, but yeah, it says the great body of Grail romances came into existence between the years 1180 and 1240. And again, this is why I doubt if any. There's a few people that claim that they have the Holy Grail, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, I just don't believe
Mm,
it. Because here's the thing: you would have had to have traced it from when Jesus had it in the Bible to
yeah.
right after that. If really the Holy Grail is only showing up in mass media about 1,180 years after Jesus actually drank out of the thing, then I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that thing's lost to time. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, the stories, most of them were written in French, but there were a few written in German, English, Norwegian, Italian, and Portuguese. That's important because this wasn't just like some local country story. Like these stories were spreading all over Europe. So, Europeans really didn't like each other very much. Now we live in a modern globalist society, and Europeans are kind of buddy buddy with each other, somewhat. Somewhat. There's
Yeah.
still
And then
some.
they got their yeah, and then they got their stepbrother Russia that they don't like.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, at this point in time, certainly, yeah. I mean, Germans, English, Italians, Portuguese, like all these guys weren't getting along, but they were all circulating the story of the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
So it says these romances may be conveniently divided into two classes. So there's basically two different kinds of stories that we were seeing. The first one was the quest of the Holy Grail. So the stories were told with a band of knights going out together as brothers, trying to find this Holy Grail. Sometimes it was for a king. Sometimes it was for the sake of an adventure. Sometimes it was kind of both. But it was more so about the journey, right? The enemies they fought along the way, the friends they made along the way. So it wasn't really about the Holy Grail itself. I mean, that's what they were trying to get, but it was really more so kind of the power of friendship. The
Hmm.
things you would
Yeah.
maybe want to encourage
The
if
true the true meaning of Christmas.
right, yeah,
Fighting your enemies and making friends.
there you go. So yeah, that's the first kind of Holy Grail story. You have the adventures, the personality of the heroes, um, and then you have the second kind of story. So the second kind of Holy Grail story was those that were actually concerned about the Holy Grail itself. And so
Mm.
when you read those kinds of stories, that one actually talked a lot about the Bible, Jesus' significance, like how his blood
Yeah.
could have healing properties. So those are the kind of two stories you would have. You would have like the fun, adventure, swashbuckling kind of story,
Yeah.
buddy cop adventure almost kind of thing. And then you'd have like the more like religious, wow, this is Christ's blood,
Yeah.
this is in this cup type of thing. So those are kind of the kind of two stories you see with it. Any questions, thoughts, or things before I continue on?
I think we could make a Patreon episode about me and you chasing the Holy Grail.
I was actually thinking that I tried to make a Holy Grail Chat GPT thing, and it was just really really long. And I was gonna float to you. I was like, what if we just dedicated one episode next year to where the whole episode is just a Chat GPT story?
About us going looking for the Holy Grail. I was saying like we actually try in real life. Like we chase down leads. And like all I can think about is me
Oh,
and you on Camelback. Like me, you, and then you got Paul back there running behind us with a camera trying to film it all. And we're just on Camelback. And we're like riding through the desert, and like Indiana Jones music is playing, we're running through Petra and like we're looking for the Grail.
I would not mind that. I would not mind that at all. So okay, I am very quickly running out of material.
Well,
um,
you finish up what you got, and then I guess we'll go over our theories and yeah.
okay, gotcha. Um, so yeah, okay, I'll just go ahead and read this last little bit. Again, this kind of connects back to Joseph of Arimathea. I kind of mentioned him a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, the early history of the Grail is intimately connected with the story of Joseph of Arimathea. When he is cast into prison by the Jews, legend says that Christ appeared to him and gave him the sacred vessel, through which he is miraculously sustained for 42 years, purely by the Holy Grail and nothing else. No food, no water, just the Holy Grail, until he is liberated. The Grail is then brought to the West, to Britain, either by Joseph of Arimathea himself, or Josephus, his son, or by Elaine, one of his kin. So, according to legend, yeah, it kind of just remains in Britain until you get to the medieval period, and that's when all the knights try to go and find it. So that's really that's really where the medieval things have their case. Because if you actually read any of these Holy Grail stories, they're not traveling to Jerusalem where Jesus actually drank out of the cup. They're like traveling around England, and you're like,
Yeah.
how the heck is the Holy Grail going to be there? Well, if you believe these legends and traditions, it's just like, well, it got there because Joseph of Arimathea went to England for some reason and he left it over there. So,
It's like all I can think about is like, you imagine like a British TV show and it's like, "Oi, mate, I heard that the Holy Grail's in the fishery down there in the bluff. All right, we got to go get it." And it's like, and then they get there and there's like, it's like a toad sitting there. Your grail's in another castle. Oh, we got to go to this castle now, and then this castle. It's just like running all over England, knocking on doors. Have you seen the Holy Grail?
I know, right? But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have. So I guess we can spend the last few minutes with theories. But one last thing I want to say before we get into theories. Uh, hey man, if something can keep me looking young forever, I think I would want it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, at the rate you're going, you got to start looking younger if you want to get a girl at this point.
Hey man, I'm not quite 30 yet. Not too far off, but
No, did you see that TikTok I sent you where it was like it was each year people were born, and after like 97, it's like, or after like 98, it's like, oh, you're 30, you're 30, you're 30.
oh yeah, yeah. I was like, oh man, 2027 will be here before I know it. But
Mm-hmm.
I just gave away my birth year, didn't I?
Yeah, everybody knows you're
Uh, I'm
what
about
now? 27. You're 27.
I'm about to be doxxed next week.
What's funny? You know what's funny is I'll tell you that later. Anyways, yeah. So theories. Do you want to go first since this is your episode, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, because my theory is probably the boringer one, which tends to be true true with us. But I mean, yeah, quite simply, I just think that the grill was lost to time, and I think even if we did have it, um, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's making anybody younger per se. That doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean it isn't sacred. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, this idea that Joseph of Arimathea went to England is kind of strange to me. Uh,
Yeah.
to me, that kind of just seems to be like a rewriting of history to make Europe more important in early Christian history than it actually is. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. What about you? Do you have any theories about where it is?
I think what happened. Okay, so I'll give you like a fun answer, and I'll give you like my more realistic, boring answer. My fun answer is okay. I think that I'm trying to think. I think it's still in Jerusalem, and I think it's somewhere buried out there. Maybe some English king already got it. I think the Knights Templars had it. Maybe brought it back up, and it's somewhere in the Vatican. We all know the Vatican hoards things. They're like Smog the Dragon.
Right.
My least realistic theory is I think some waitress, came by, cleaned up the table, and it got mixed in with all the other cups, you know,
Dang.
and all the other dishes. So, these people that are like, if they're over there excavating, where he ate the Last Supper at, they're like, we found the cup. And it really was just Judas's cup. I don't think somebody went in there and was like, I've got to have the cup that Jesus drank from, And that's why, and I don't think, and if the cup is ever found, I don't think it's going to have the magical healing properties we think it does, because I think the reason why like the ark has the powers it does is because like God ordered that to be constructed. It's like kind of like Stephen finds like he's sitting there in a coffee shop, Who's a celebrity crush of yours? Do you have a celebrity crush?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had when I was a kid, I really liked Tori Kelly, the singer.
Okay. So
She was
Steven's sitting at a coffee shop. Huh?
the elephant from Sing. Never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said your crush was the elephant from Sing, but I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
The,
whoa, Steven.
the girl who voiced her.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Anyways, so like, cause like the thing is, like, I don't think back then they had the kind of thought process that people do today. Like Steven's sitting there and he sees, what was her name again?
Tori Kelly.
Tori. He's sitting in a coffee shop, sees Tori Kelly come in, order a coffee. She sips it and he sees her throw it away and runs over there and grabs the cup. Like, Tori Kelly touched this cup. Like, this is the coolest cup. I don't think back then they thought like that. So I think the waitress just happened to come by, clean the table. It's gone. At this point,
Yeah.
you know what? The Holy Grail, gone. Nobody knows where it's at. It probably got thrown out at some point, you know, because the innkeeper was like, oh, this cup's chipped. We can't use it anymore. Out it goes. And then, you know, all I can think about is like a montage now. Like, you just follow the cup, like it gets thrown out by the guy who owns the restaurant where they ate. And then some gutter rat kid comes and takes it and uses it to like get spare change. And then, you know, he loses it. And this guy gets it. And this guy gets it. And just goes all through these people. Like a whole montage, like the Chef Boyardee Campbell, like the soup roll, you know, like it goes past all these people. Like, where'd the Grail go? But yeah, I realistically, I don't think the Grail, I think it's been destroyed. I don't think I don't think we'll ever find it. I don't think back then they thought of that big of an importance, you know, because I don't think really Jesus said, I'm going to die tonight. I think he just was like, yo, someone's going to betray me. And I was like, okay, well, we want to save Jesus. We don't care about the dinner plates, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my theory. I think I don't think anybody was very significant with it and was like, we got to keep on to this cup. I think it just happened to just be lost to time. So.
I agree, my friend. I agree.
So yeah. Alrighty. Thank y'all, s'mores. This is the last episode of 2024.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, a week from now we will be yeah, it'll be 2025.
I know.
So
yeah. So thank y'all for watching. We've had a fun year this year. I really cannot wait for next year. Be on the lookout for on our YouTube page. Haley will be releasing some, or she'll be sending me some montage clips of some great moments from 2024 for all you guys to look back. And we will see y'all in the new year. Y'all have a great one, s'mores, and Happy New Year.